The rain had already begun to fall by the time I left the last gas station. A light drizzle tapping softly against the windshield, like a warning whisper I didn't bother to hear. I had miles to go before home, and the highway ahead was long, empty, and stretched between woods and forgotten farmlands. It wasn't my first time taking this road, but something about the weather, the late hour, and the oppressive grey sky made it feel unfamiliar, like I was driving into something I wasn't supposed to see. The farther I went, the heavier the rain became, turning the drizzle into a relentless downpour that washed over the windshield in thick sheets. The wipers struggled to keep up, dragging water aside only to be buried again by more. Visibility dropped to mere feet in front of the headlights, and the fog that crept in with the storm made it even worse. It moved low across the road, curling like smoke, refusing to clear. I kept my hands tight on the wheel and leaned forward, eyes squinting against the wall of grey. There were no other cars in sight, no taillights ahead, no oncoming beams, just me and the rain and that whispering fog. The radio crackled softly, stuck between stations. Even the familiar sounds of static and music felt distant, hollow, like they were echoing from somewhere far away. The air inside the car grew colder as the temperature outside dropped. I could feel the damp creeping in through the vents, clinging to my skin and clothes. The hum of the engine was the only steady thing left in that strange, quiet chaos. A low vibration beneath my feet that reminded me I was still moving forward, still grounded in something normal. Then, without any warning, the car jolted. Just once, a sharp hiccup, like it had hit an invisible bump. The dashboard lights flickered. My foot instinctively eased off the gas and I looked down, heart already picking up speed. Another flicker. The engine gave a sputtering sound, then coughed. The headlights dimmed. I pressed the gas again, gently, trying not to panic. The car groaned as if something inside it were resisting. Then it happened. A sudden, complete silence. The engine died. The lights blinked out, and the wipers froze halfway across the windshield. The car rolled for a few feet in neutral before, settling to a stop at the edge of the road. Its nose dipped slightly, as if it were bowing to whatever force had just killed it. I sat frozen for a second, listening. The silence was deafening without the engine's hum. Rain still poured outside, but now it was louder, too loud, like it was pressing against the car, trying to get in. I turned the key in the ignition. Nothing. No click. No attempt to turn. Over. Just the soft, wet tapping of rain against glass. I checked the lights, the radio, anything. Dead. Completely dead. My fingers fumbled for my phone, and when I brought up the screen, the tiny symbol in the corner confirmed what I already suspected. No signal. Not even a single bar. I was alone, cut off, and surrounded by fog so thick it looked like the road had vanished entirely. I sat in the driver's seat, staring out into the thick white fog that had swallowed the road. The rain hadn't let up. It was pounding harder now, bouncing off the hood of the car and rolling in rivers down the windshield. The wipers, frozen, mid-swipe from the power failure, left long arcs of smeared water that distorted my view even more. Beyond the glass, everything was grey. No landmarks, no trees, no guardrails. Just endless mist curling and shifting like smoke, never quite settling. It was as if the world beyond my car had dissolved into nothing. I turned off the flashlight on my phone to conserve battery, though I didn't even know why. With no signal, there wasn't much I could do except wait and hope the car came back to life. But it didn't, and the silence inside the vehicle was starting to feel wrong. It wasn't a normal silence. It was too heavy, like the kind you get in the middle of the night when something's in the room with you, watching, and you're not supposed to move or make a sound. I felt it crawling along my spine. The stillness was unnatural. No birds, no distant thunder, not even the hum of distant traffic. It was as if the storm had drained all sound from the world, leaving only the drumming of rain and the suffocating hush of fog. I glanced in the rearview mirror out of habit. It was useless. Only darkness stared back at me. I leaned forward and wiped the windshield with my sleeve, trying to get a better look. That's when I noticed something strange. The fog wasn't just hanging still. It was moving, almost pulsing, like it had a rhythm of its own. It rolled in patterns that felt too intentional to be natural, wrapping around the car in slow, sweeping waves. It coiled around the side mirrors and licked at the edges of the doors, hiding everything beyond. The windows. I blinked and leaned closer, trying to follow its motion. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but it almost looked like it was trying to come closer. Not drifting in the wind, approaching. I rolled down the window an inch just to hear. Maybe there was someone out there. Maybe the fog was playing tricks on my eyes. But the second the air touched my skin, I froze. It was bitter cold, unnaturally cold. The kind of chill that feels like fingers brushing against your neck, leaving behind a trail of ice. I hurriedly rolled the window back up. My breath fogged, up the glass, and for a moment I could see my own reflection, pale and wide-eyed, staring back at me like a stranger. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the door lock, double-checking that it was secured. It was, but that didn't help. I turned to look at my phone again. Still no signal, no GPS. Just the dim glow of the screen and the mocking emptiness of no service printed in the corner. I thought about walking, about grabbing my coat and flashlight and heading back toward the gas station. But the truth was, I didn't know how far I'd come. The fog made it impossible to judge distance. It could have been 10 miles or 2. And the idea of stepping out into that wall of white, with the cold and the silence, and the way the fog moved like it was alive, that idea was too much. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I opened the door, I wouldn't be alone. I stayed in the driver's seat, wrapped in the unnatural quiet, eyes darting between the fog and the dashboard, as if either would change. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time felt like it had no shape anymore. The fog was getting thicker, if that was even possible, and the rain had softened just enough that the tapping on the roof felt rhythmic, like a slow heartbeat. That's when I saw it. At first, it didn't register. Just a blur in the fog, something faint. My tired eyes thought it was a tree or maybe a road sign barely peeking through, but then it moved, just a step. Slow, deliberate. A shadow within the fog, shaped like a person, standing still and facing my direction. I froze. My breath caught halfway up my chest and I leaned forward, squinting hard. The figure wasn't close, not yet. Maybe 20 or 30 feet ahead, but it was there, unmistakably human in shape, yet something about it was off. I couldn't make out details. The face, if it had one, was buried in fog. But the way it stood, motionless and unnatural, sent a jolt of cold down my back. Most people fidget. They shift their weight, adjust their footing. But this thing didn't move at all, not even in the rain. My first instinct was to hit the horn. Maybe it was someone who needed help. Maybe they saw my stalled car and were approaching to offer assistance. But something inside me refused. A quiet, primal voice whispered that I shouldn't draw attention to myself, that I should stay perfectly still, like prey, hoping the predator won't notice. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, half buried in the mist, as if waiting. I couldn't tell how long I stared. The air in the car had gone completely cold. I rubbed my arms, heart pounding harder now. I wanted to believe it was just a stranded driver or a farmer from a nearby field who'd gotten lost in the storm. But no one wandered this road on foot, especially not this deep into the night, and definitely not in this weather. The figure shifted again. Just a step, still facing me, still silent. That small movement broke something inside me. I reached for my phone again, hand shaking, hoping the signal had returned. Nothing. Still dead. I even tried the emergency dial, just out of desperation, but it failed to connect. I set the phone down, slowly. My eyes never left the figure. That's when I noticed something worse. It wasn't wet. Everything around us was soaked. The road, the trees, even the fog had that humid thickness to it. But the figure, it was dry. There was no glisten of water, no shine from the distant light reflecting off puddles. It was as if the rain didn't touch it at all. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself it was just the fog playing tricks, refracting light, creating illusions. But the figure was still there, unchanging, watching. I could feel its gaze, even, without seeing eyes. A weight pressing down on my chest, a deep unease that felt ancient and instinctive. Every nerve in my body was screaming now, telling me something was wrong, horribly wrong. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared, back through the glass, heart racing, waiting for it to do something. The quiet wasn't quiet anymore. As I sat there, paralyzed in the driver's seat, the soft drumming of the rain began to change. It started subtly, a slight shift in rhythm, like someone tapping their fingers on the roof just a little too fast, too deliberate. My ears strained, trying to make sense of it, to convince myself it was just the storm playing tricks, but it wasn't. The tapping grew clearer, louder, more rhythmic. Not like rain at all. It was concentrated, precise, a pattern, like knuckles on metal. I turned slowly, eyes wide, and glanced up at the roof of the car. I couldn't see anything through the windshield anymore. The fog had thickened again, pressing against the glass like breath. The sound continued above me. Tap, tap, tap. Then a pause, then again, and then it moved. The taps shifted, traveling from the center of the roof toward the back of the car. My blood ran cold. I wasn't alone. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I strained to hear past the sound of my own breathing. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, each thud louder than the last. The tapping stopped. For a second, all I could hear was the rain again, but this time, it was broken by another sound, a soft scraping, like something dragging across the metal of the trunk. I turned my head toward the rearview mirror, expecting, I don't even know what, but all I saw was darkness. The fog had swallowed the back window completely, turning it into a blank, grey void. I didn't dare move. I barely breathed. My fingers gripped the edge of the steering wheel, knuckles white, eyes scanning the mirrors and side windows for any hint of movement. That's when I heard it again. A soft thud, this time on the rear passenger window. I jumped, flinching hard. My eyes snapped to the sound. Nothing. The window was covered in streaks of water, too distorted to see through. I leaned a fraction, closer, trying to catch a glimpse beyond the glass. Another thud. This time on the opposite side. I jerked back, eyes darting between both windows, heart in my throat. Something, or someone, was circling the car. Slow, measured, testing. I locked the doors again, even though they were already locked. My fingers hovered over the horn, but I couldn't press it. I didn't want to provoke whatever was out there. I had the horrifying thought that maybe it was better if it didn't know I was inside. A soft creak echoed from the back of the car, like weight settling on metal. My head whipped around. The roof groaned ever so slightly. It was up there. I could hear it now, shifting, the way you hear wood creak when someone's walking on an old floorboard. And then came the sound I dreaded most. A light brushing sound on the front windshield. Something slid slowly across the glass, tracing a line in the moisture that had built up. I stared in disbelief as a long, thin mark appeared right in front of me, moving from one side of the windshield to the other, like a fingertip dragging through the condensation. I couldn't see what was making the mark, only that something was definitely out there, and it was inches from my face. The line stopped, and then the tapping returned, this time from both sides of the car, First one window, then the other. Like whatever was out there had multiplied. Or worse, there had always been more than one. I didn't realize how hard I was breathing until I saw the fog on the inside of the windshield, a cloudy patch where my breath kept misting the glass. I tried to calm myself, inhaling slowly, exhaling even slower, but my body wasn't listening. Every nerve felt like it was vibrating, like something deep inside me already knew this wasn't something I could explain away or rationalize. The tapping had stopped again, but that somehow made it worse. Silence after fear always carries weight, like the air is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. I reached over and checked the lock on the passenger side again, even though I knew it hadn't moved. My fingers were trembling. I turned the key in the ignition just once more, hoping for a miracle. Nothing. Not even the faint click of an attempt. It was like the car was no longer just broken. It was paralyzed, like it had become part of the storm, part of whatever was happening out here. My eyes flicked back to the windshield. The long streak left by that invisible finger was still there, cutting through the condensation like a scar. I stared at it, wondering if it was still out there, standing just beyond the glass, watching me without moving. Then I heard something I couldn't ignore. Breathing. Not outside. Inside. It started, soft, almost too soft to catch. A shallow inhale, like someone trying not to be heard, but it was there. I froze completely, spine stiff, blood draining from my face. My eyes slowly shifted toward the rearview mirror, even though a part of me screamed not to look. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to know, but I couldn't help it. My head turned inch by inch until my eyes met the black rectangle of the mirror. At first, nothing, just darkness. The back seat was shrouded in shadow, but then the fog outside lit up slightly, just enough for a faint bit of light to filter through the rear window. That's when I saw it. A shape. Faint. Motionless. Sitting perfectly still in the center of the back seat. I couldn't breathe. I didn't move. My reflection in the rearview mirror stared back at me, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, paralyzed with fear. And behind that reflection, in the blur of shadows, was something else. I couldn't make out its face. I didn't even know if it had one. But I could see the outline of shoulders, a head, something hunched, as if it had been crouched there the entire time, watching me, waiting. The breathing grew louder, more deliberate. Shallow inhales, excruciatingly slow exhales. It wasn't trying to hide anymore. It wanted me to hear it. My hand, almost acting on its own, reached slowly for the door handle. I didn't know where I thought I would go. There was nothing outside but fog and cold and whatever had been tapping on the glass. But staying in the car with whatever was behind me felt just as impossible. I risked a glance over my shoulder slowly, inching my body around. The figure didn't move, but I could see more now. It wasn't sitting like a person. It was hunched, forward, elbows on its knees, head low like it was studying me, like it was thinking. The space around it felt darker, like the shadows clung to it more than anything else. My mouth was dry, my heart thudding so hard it hurt. I was afraid to blink, afraid that if I did, the thing would suddenly be closer, or worse, smiling. I didn't dare move, but every instinct in me was screaming to run, to get out of the car, to put distance between myself and whatever was sitting silently behind me. My body was locked in place, muscles tensed, hands clenched on the steering, wheels so tightly they were beginning to cramp. I could still hear the breathing, slow, steady, unnervingly calm. It wasn't loud, but it filled the car like smoke, creeping into every corner, wrapping around me like invisible hands. It sounded too close, too real, as if it wasn't behind me anymore but leaning in just over my shoulder. I focused on the rearview mirror again. The shape was still there, sitting in that unnatural position, perfectly still, too still. I expected even a shift in weight or the rise and fall of shoulders from its breath, but nothing moved. The only sound now was the rain and that slow, terrifying inhale and exhale. I couldn't take it anymore. My hand moved, slow and trembling, toward my phone again, even though I knew there was no signal. I didn't care. I just needed something, anything to hold on to, something that reminded me of the real world beyond this nightmare. As I lifted the phone, a small click echoed in the car. A soft, metallic sound. The kind of sound a door lock makes when it shifts. My heart skipped. I looked at the lock on the driver's side. It was still down. Another click. This one on the passenger side. Click, click, click. One by one, the locks began shifting up and down, rhythmically, slowly, like fingers pressing them. I couldn't move. My whole body was frozen in terror. The phone slipping slightly in my sweaty grip. The power was dead. The car had no electricity. Yet the locks were moving. Then, the breathing stopped. And the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that feels like something holding its breath, leaning in closer, waiting for a reaction. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My body refused. I stared dead ahead, eyes wide, heart thudding like a war drum. The fog outside had grown so dense that it looked like the windows had been painted white. No light, no road, no escape. A sudden movement. The car shifted. Something heavy leaned forward from the back seat. I felt the weight change behind me, the groan of the suspension, the soft creak of the seat as it adjusted to a new pressure. My skin crawled. Every hair on my body stood up. I could feel its presence inches away now, not just watching but preparing to act. I wanted to scream. I wanted to open the door and run into the storm, into the fog, into anything other than this. But my hands wouldn't work. My legs wouldn't obey. I was trapped by fear and whatever had come into my car through the cracks in the world. The sound of a breath returned, but now it was right in my ear. Warm, wet, slow. I clenched my jaw, biting down on the scream building in my throat. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even pray. My thoughts were white noise. I was no longer thinking in words, only sensations, cold, dread, stillness. I felt it watching me, studying me, deciding what to do next. The air around me had changed completely. It was thick, almost impossible to breathe in. Like I was underwater, drowning in the pressure of whatever unnatural thing had invaded the small space behind me. And then I saw it. Not in the mirror, not through the window, but in the reflection on my phone screen, two hollow eyes just over my shoulder.